Power plus suspense plus micro terror. On the eve of Qixi, Zhu Yangxin came across a scene that he would never forget. The scene of his boyfriend Xi Chuan and his junior sister stealing sex. She walked on her way back to school, feeling lost and lost. Unexpectedly, something strange happened. Keywords of the novel. Thrilling opening, I am numb without pop-ups. Thrilling opening, I am numb to download the complete TXT collection. Thrilling opening, I am numb to read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. Is green. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 is green, ache. Zhu Yangxin habitually wanted to rub her nose, but was forcefully blocked by the large headband of the puppet, which made her feel itchy and uncomfortable. Unfortunately, this silly and adorable person who was just sneezing shook her head, as if poking a switch around the bear children. While laughing loudly, the little demons crowded around and pushed her, causing her to stumble. Zhu Yangxin's heart was filled with complaints, but fortunately, she quickly raised the handrail to stabilize her body and avoid rolling to the ground. Just as Zhu Yangxin was about to turn her head and glare at the mischievous bear child to vent her anger, she seemed to suddenly have a telepathy. She looked up at the entrance of the mall and a familiar face came into view. Her boyfriend was wearing a light blue T-shirt, with a symmetrical figure and bright lights shining on his face, presenting a soft curve on his handsome face. How could my boyfriend be here? Do you know she works part-time and came to see her specifically? There was a hint of surprise on Zhu Yangxin's face. Just as she was about to shake off these little brats and run over, she was blinded by the next scene. Another sweet face pressed tightly against her boyfriend's shoulder, and the two of them clasped their fingers together, their eyes fixed on each other, with a rolling electric current between their eyebrows and eyes, making Zhu Yangxin feel extremely excited. The girl handed her half-eaten strawberry ice cream to her boyfriend, who took a bite without hesitation. Zhu Yangxin's mind was blank, and the scene was too stimulating for her to react. This girl, she also recognizes, is Xia Bingyu, a junior sister from the same school who is 1 grade lower than them. Xia Bingyu has a sweet appearance. Even if she can't be considered a school flower-level beauty, her appearance is still likable. Coupled with her lively and outgoing personality, she is very popular in school. Zhu Yangxin and her boyfriend Xi Chuan met this junior sister by chance 6 months ago. Her romantic relationship with Xi Chuan is well known to junior sister. Zhu Yangxin never expected that these two people would secretly be together. Xia Bingyu's eyes swept ahead and excitedly pointed. Xi Chuan took the opportunity to look over, and the two were looking at Zhu Yangxin dressed in a doll. Zhu Yangxin's face turned black in an instant. Fortunately, she was wrapped in a puppet outfit and no one could see her. Xia Bingyu pulled Xi Chuanqing and rushed over to Zhu Yangxin, waving with a smile, and then looked up at the KT board sign held by Zhu Yangxin. Zhu Yangxin felt at a loss, like a sculpture, staring at the two without moving. Xia Bingyu gave Zhu Yangxin a strange glance, probably wondering why the person wearing a puppet costume in front of her remained silent. Shouldn't she warmly invite herself? There seems to be an event over there, should we go and take a look? Little junior sister didn't think much and quickly turned to Xi Chuan beside her, asking. Upon hearing these words, the veins on Zhu Yangxin's forehead were bulging, desperately suppressing the urge to pull their hands apart. Now it's summer vacation. The reason why Zhu Yangxin appears here is that he just took a part-time job and put on puppet costumes to attract couples for the Qixi festival activity in the mall. But she never dreamed that she would attract her boyfriend and mistress. Seeing them holding hands is not enough, why send them off to play couple games on stage? What a joke. Without even thinking, Zhu Yangxin raised her hand and stopped the two of them as they were about to walk towards the center of the mall. Xia Bingyu and Xi Chuan clearly did not expect the puppet people to make such a move, and were stunned for a moment. What's wrong? Xia Bingyu tilted her head and instinctively wanted to see what the strange people inside looked like through the black gauze net on the puppet's chin. Zhu Yangxin immediately realized what she was going to do and quickly turned around, panicking and leaving. She hasn't figured out what to do yet, and she doesn't want this dog man and woman to discover her identity now, so she can only leave in disappointment. Watching Xi Chuan and his junior sister playing happily on stage from a distance, Zhu Yangxin's head slowly regained its composure. In the past, I only thought that my junior sister was heartless, straightforward, and naturally familiar, so even if I occasionally saw her interacting with Xi Chuan, Zhu Yangxin didn't think much about it. Now put on colored glasses and think about it again, you can easily taste a different flavor without any effort. At the end of the game, Xi Chuan led Xia Bingyu down the stage, carefully picking her up and weaving through the crowded crowd. The junior sister looked up and her gaze met Zhu Yangxin again. Zhu Yangxin looked at the little junior sister with a cunning curve at the corner of her mouth, as if she had seen through her puppet outfit. That expression flashed by, and Zhu Yangxin couldn't be sure if what she had just seen was her own overthinking or the truth. Xi Chuan and Xia Bingyu chatted happily along the way, walking in the opposite direction to Zhu Yangxin through the crowd, and soon turned into the entrance of the inconspicuous Express Hotel, disappearing without a trace. Just so straightforward and without any suspense. Turned green. Until the end of the shopping mall event and the end of work, Zhu Yangxin had not fully regained her composure. For the first time, she felt that everything was so unreal. Her first love boyfriend was cheating on her junior sister, and she was bumped into by herself. This kind of vulgar scene is not even popular in soap operas, okay? What should I do next? Hand-torn scumbag man. Break up by lifting the table. Or are you going to kill them now and light their sheets? She wiped her face, the scorching summer evening breeze without a hint of coolness, making her even more restless. She walked up the pedestrian bridge in a daze and returned to her dormitory. At this moment, Zhu Yangxin's mind kept flashing with the faint smile of her junior sister. Sister, do you want to buy flowers? A bright red rose suddenly appeared in front of Zhu Yangxin, and then she fixed her eyes on a little girl. The girl is about 7 or 8 years old, dressed in a red skirt, tied in 2 small braids, with thick eyebrows and big eyes, and a cute smile. No need, thank you. Zhu Yangxin weakly waved her hand and continued forward. Ah. Sister, don't you have a boyfriend? Tomorrow will be Qixi festival. Buying a flower may lead to an affair. Thank you very much. I also need to remind me that Zhu Yangxin was the CEO of Being Greened on the eve of Qixi. Just as Zhu Yangxin was about to say something, a black dog suddenly pounced and frightened the little girl, causing her to dodge backwards. She couldn't have taken a steady step, and a basket of roses rolled down the stairs of the overpass. If it weren't for Zhu Yangxin's quick eye and quick hand, this ancient and quirky little guy would have fallen along with her. Zhu Yangxin feels that she may have a water reversal today. Ah, my flower. The little girl shouted loudly and saw passers-by trampling on the rose without knowing why. She immediately burst into tears. Everyone looked at the two of them, and Zhu Yangxin's mind, which was dizzy with anger, short-circuited again under the scorching gaze of everyone. She released her hand, and the little girl was surprised as she tilted her body and fell to the ground, crying even louder while covering her ankle. It hurt so much. The little girl's tears flowed down her face, and the broken hair on her forehead was also wet with sweat. Zhu Yangxin's scalp tightened. It's over, and now it's completely unclear what the relationship is. She approached with a guilty heart and gently touched the girl's ankle. As soon as she touched her, she screamed, "Wow," as if she had sprained. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Women in Red Skirts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Women in red skirts. Several reproachful gazes rushed towards Zhu Yangxin, and someone whispered to her. Zhu Yangxin was publicly executed by a group of gazes, and he picked up the little girl in a disheveled manner, taking her down from the overpass while helping her pick up a small basket and the surviving roses. After temporarily leaving the crowd, the two sat down in a small park by the roadside, and Zhu Yangxin breathed a little sigh of relief. Putting down her bag, she took out the ice water she had just bought and lightly pressed it on the little girl's ankle, which was a bit swollen. "Is it more comfortable like this?" Zhu Yangxin carefully helped her apply ice, and her fair ankle was visibly swollen and red, which was shocking to the eye. "Well, sister, you're really kind. You're so kind, how could you not have a boyfriend?" The little one stopped crying and put on a smiling expression. Zhu Yangxin suspected that she might have been hit with porcelain. "You're really good at chatting." She really wants to roll her eyes at the little one. This little guy is a little devil who only touches people's hearts. "I'm not a little kid. My name is Xiaoya." "What's your name, sister?" Xiaoya is not afraid of being born at all. "My name is Xiaoxin." "Where do you live?" "I'll take you home." At this moment, pedestrians are sparse near the small park, and the night is getting deeper. Half a day of part-time work, coupled with witnessing the scene of dog blood just now, Zhu Yangxin was exhausted both physically and mentally. She just wanted to quickly send her away and then return to the dormitory to lie down peacefully. The address provided by Xiaoya can be on the same route as Zhu Yangxin. As Zhu Yangxin was about to help the little girl up, she reached out to grab her bag when she found her subordinates empty. The bag that had just been by her side had actually disappeared without a trace. She immediately looked around and saw a woman in a red dress walking slowly towards the river with her back to them 10 steps away. A corner was exposed on the woman's side, resembling a missing bag. "Don't run around here, I'll be right back." Zhu Yangxin explained to Xiaoya and quickly ran to chase after the woman in the red dress. "Hey, don't leave." Zhu Yangxin ran while shouting. The woman in the red dress did not stop or run away, still moving forward calmly. Zhu Yangxin chased after her for a long time, always about 2 or 3 steps away from the woman in the red dress. She looked like she could catch up soon, but she was always just a little short. The most eerie thing is that compared to her wild pursuit, the woman in the red dress just walked calmly, like strolling leisurely in the courtyard after dinner. The woman gracefully walked down the riverside avenue, adjacent to the flowing river water on the other side. The river breeze brushed against Zhu Yangxin's face, and she smelled the warm smell of water. This road is not wide, with dim streetlights extending forward, leaving only her and the woman in a red dress around. "Hey, wait a moment!" Zhu Yangxin shouted again. This time, the woman in the red dress stopped and her waist-length hair was blown up by the river wind. Zhu Yangxin felt like she had finally reached the finish line of an 800-meter-long run, panting heavily as she stepped forward and placed her hand on the shoulder of a woman in a red dress. Her shoulders were soft and cool, and when they touched her, Zhu Yangxin's mind cleared up a bit. The street lights above flickered a few times, emitting a sizzling sound of electricity. Zhu Yangxin felt goosebumps all over her body, with an ominous premonition. "Are you calling me?" The voice of the woman in the red dress was like tapping on diffuse, enveloping Zhu Yangxin in a silky manner. If she hadn't stood in front of her, Zhu Yangxin might not have been able to distinguish where this ethereal voice came from. The woman slowly turned around, her broken hair blowing up in front of her face. Seeing the appearance of the woman in the red dress, Zhu Yangxin had a feeling of being struck by lightning. Whether it was her figure or facial features, the woman in the red dress was no less than her junior sister. If there is any difference, it is that the woman's skin at this time is pale, as if there is no blood at all. Against the backdrop of the red dress, it appears particularly eerie. By the way, when she saw the junior sister just now, she wasn't wearing this outfit. But Zhu Yangxin couldn't figure it out. At this moment, the junior sister should be flirting with Xi Chuan, how could she come and walk her bag smoothly? Thinking of this, Zhu Yangxin lowered her head and saw that it was not her own bag, but a strange hairless creature being held in the arms of her junior sister. Zhu Yangxin had never seen anything so strange before. Its body color was very dark, and it was a black ball in the darkness. Its long claws were wrinkled, and a pair of narrow eyes were shining with a faint green light. Its nostrils were facing the sky, one big and one small, and its big mouth was open upwards. Its appearance was particularly sharp and eye-catching. The strange thing stared at Zhu Yangxin and extended its long tongue to lick her lips. Zhu Yangxin noticed its long and slender pointed teeth, and couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart. If bitten, the taste will surely be unforgettable. Just as Zhu Yangxin didn't know how to respond, the little guy in the arms of the junior sister moved his body and faced Zhu Yangxin, ready to go. Her intuition told her that something very bad was about to happen, so she decisively turned around and ran without hesitation. In the next moment, the strange thing indeed rushed towards Zhu Yangxin, chasing her closely all the way, making a clattering sound in her mouth, as if someone was scraping bamboo leaves. What the hell is this thing? Even if you look ugly, you're still so fierce. Zhu Yangxin wished she could run back to the main road immediately, so that she could at least find a sense of security in the crowd. But she ran for a long time and never saw the stairs back to the Riverside Avenue. She turned around and saw the little junior sister standing quietly 10 steps away, showing a strange smile. Her brain was about to explode. Zhu Yangxin was very certain that she had already run at least 100 or 200 meters. Why did the little junior sister appear motionless, but still be so close to her? Everything is so wrong. Since there was no hope of running away, Zhu Yangxin gritted her teeth and grabbed the railing next to her, quickly stopping her steps. She picked up a large stone and, while the monster was running, fiercely smashed it towards the door. The strange thing dodged on its side, and Zhu Yangxin immediately grabbed the gap and took a step forward, kicking it into the river. It's not that she's ruthless, but just the thought of that strange thing with its good teeth makes Zhu Yangxin shiver all over her body. She's afraid of pain. Looking up again at this moment, there is no trace of the junior sister. Zhu Yangxin rubbed her eyes, and the long river water curved slightly, extending all the way to the distant night sky. However, just a few seconds into the sudden attack on the little monster, the junior sister disappeared out of thin air. Her heart skipped a beat, feeling that the really bad thing had not yet arrived. Zhu Yangxin didn't want to stay for a moment. She turned around to find her way back to the Riverside Avenue, facing a pale, paperless face with a cold breath. Zhu Yangxin instantly suffocated, suppressed her screams, and jumped back 2 steps away. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Water Yaksha. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Water Yaksha. Are you a human or a ghost? Zhu Yangxin couldn't help but shout. This idea is a bit eerie. After all, 2 hours ago, she witnessed her junior sister holding Xi Chuan and flaunting herself in the market. However, only Zhu Yangxin herself knew how bizarre and terrifying the situation was at this moment. The junior sister smiled faintly, and for a moment, Zhu Yangxin saw that her face had changed to a different look, and she trembled all over. You're not Xia Bingyu, who are you? The woman in the red dress was stunned for a moment, then she put on a cold smile and raised her hand to lightly stroke her cheek. What did you see? She gently caressed her face, even though it was her own. Zhu Yangxin felt a sense of being playing with an interesting toy. The appearance I saw just now really scared Zhu Yangxin. She had never seen such a strange face before. Don't pretend, you're not Xia Bingyu at all. We have no grievances or grudges. Why did you come to me? Zhu Yangxin felt that the woman in the red dress in front of her might not be human at all. Didn't you provoke me? That's right. The woman spoke, her whole face cracking and falling as her lips rolled up and down, drifting away in the wind, revealing her true colors. The dark face was covered with dense eyes, all of which were staring straight at Zhu Yangxin. That's right. At that moment, Zhu Yangxin caught a glimpse of this face. In the next moment, the face of intense fear of death was like a gust of wind blowing in front of Zhu Yangxin, with their noses just a finger away. But you just kicked a vengeful guy into the river. Whether it was the suddenly enlarged terrifying face or the words spoken by the woman, they all exploded in Zhu Yangxin's mind. Seemingly in response to the woman, Zhu Yangxin's right ankle was gripped by a huge hand, and she was quickly dragged into the cold and dark river water. The murky river water poured into her mouth and nose, rendering all her senses ineffective. Zhu Yangxin struggled to open her eyes, slowing down the descent. The bottom of the river surprisingly revealed a faint light, and the surroundings turned dark golden. A figure gradually formed in front of her, and the figure struggled forward, with its outline becoming clearer. Zhu Yangxin fixed her gaze and saw a middle-aged man over there, hunched over and covered in bloodstains. He reached out to her with a grim expression, trying to catch her. Zhu Yangxin wanted to turn her head and leave, but she was currently suspended in the water. As a dry duck, underwater hands and feet always have their own thoughts, thumping around recklessly and still in place. The blood man is getting closer and closer. As the distance shortened, Zhu Yangxin was able to see the blood man more clearly. His face was covered in dirt, making it difficult to distinguish his true appearance. The blood man's lips opened and closed, as if speaking something, but the scene before him was like a mime, and Zhu Yangxin could not hear any sound. She increasingly wanted to step back, but her body was out of control, watching as the blood man's big hand gently caressed her face. The scene of blood figures tearing her apart kept flashing in her mind, and her heart became even more flustered and fearful. In the next moment, a big hand wrapped around her chest. Zhu Yangxin lifted her head and saw a delicate mask that covered half of the man's cold face. In the blink of an eye, everything was completely unrecognizable. Before Zhu Yangxin's eyes, an ugly strange face appeared, which was 9 points similar to the strange thing she kicked into the river, but its size was magnified many times, more than half the size of an adult's head. The strange thing's dark green pupils met her 4 eyes, and Zhu Yangxin was aroused. Da-da-da. Strange sounds were heard from the mouth of the monster, with slightly parted cheeks on both sides, resembling fish gills. The strange thing transformed into a 3-meter-tall figure, carrying a 3-pointed steel fork on his back, skinny and even uglier than when he was in the arms of a woman in a red dress before. Zhu Yangxin thought of a legendary monster. Yaksha. Shuyeka grabbed Zhu Yangxin's neck, and her suppressed breath immediately dissipated. The cold river water once again poured recklessly into her chest and abdomen. It was impossible to breathe, and Zhu Yangxin became increasingly powerless. The scene before her was colorful, dim, and then disillusioned. Everything happened too fast. She wanted to struggle and fight back, but there was no time at all. Is it the feeling of dying, surrounded by darkness and cold? In a daze, Zhu Yangxin saw a golden light, very dazzling. She thought she was about to embark on her journey, and then she felt a warm current in her heart, only to realize that the golden light came from her heart, so warm, as if encountering a warm sun from an ice pack. Shuyeka did not anticipate such a change and angrily raised the 3-pointed steel fork, stabbing it towards Zhu Yangxin's heart. A strange thing happened. A golden light shot out like a shooting star, transforming into the shape of a young man. The man grabbed the front handle of the 3-pointed steel fork with one hand and blocked the momentum of the water knight fork's attack. Perhaps it was fortunate to have a savior, but Zhu Yangxin could no longer hold on and let go. Shuyeka attacked even more angrily. The man gave Zhu Yangxin an indifferent glance and then stared straight at the huge Shuyeka. After a round of punches and kicks, Shuyeka spun away with a beautiful Thomas. The man then picked up Zhu Yangxin and threw her onto the shore. He crouched down, carefully scrutinized Zhu Yang, and forcefully pressed Zhu Yangxin's stomach. Zhu Yangxin spat out a mouthful of water, coughed a few times, and turned around. Under the dim yellow streetlight, the man had long hair and was naked on his upper body, revealing eye-catching muscle lines. Zhu Yangxin almost spat out nosebleeds. However, all the salivation for his beauty was stopped after seeing his face. It's not that the man is ugly, it's just that his handsome features are too cold, especially his eagle-like eyes, like two sharp knives piercing deep into the soul. There is a turtle crack on the corner of the man's forehead, which is particularly prominent. Zhu Yangxin was about to say something when a ball of red smoke condensed into the shape of a woman in a red dress 2 steps behind the man. Zhu Yangxin wanted to remind the man to be careful, but at such a close distance, if the eye monster wanted to do something, she wouldn't have time to stop it. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Minghe. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 5. Grass grows and birds fly. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Grass grows and birds fly, no, just strolling around. Zhu Yangxin was not in the mood to explain, and her head was pressed against a huge stone. Zhu Yangxin went to the bathroom and turned on the faucet, pouring a few drops of cold water on her face, so she couldn't distinguish which ones were tears. Her heart throbbed with pain. Intuition is probably a natural talent that all girls have. Looking back carefully, Zhu Yangxin also felt that something was wrong with Xi Chuan recently, but she always advised herself not to think too much. After all, the seeds of suspicion will quickly grow wildly when they sprout. Watching the scenes related to Xi Chuan and Xia Shimiai, Zhu Yangxin only realized how painful it was when she slapped her face, that self-deception was meaningless. Open your eyes again, the sun is already rising 3 times. Zhu Yangxin rubbed her eyes, and the ring on her right index finger pressed against her face. She pretended to be sick and pushed off today's part-time job, but didn't want to stay alone in the dormitory. After lunch, she bought 2 cups of milk tea and went to the place where Riemann worked part-time to find her. Riemann happened to be finishing work. Oh, I thought you were going to accompany your family to Xi Chuan today. Why did you think of picking me up? Li Man saw the milk tea in Zhu Yangxin's hand and quickly picked it up and started drinking it. A man can't have you. Upon hearing that name, Zhu Yangxin's heart ached for a moment. Little mouth so sweet, let's go. I just received my salary today, let's go shopping. Riemann did not see the tumultuous situation in her heart and walked out with her arm in hand. Entering the mall, Li Man's family tried on clothes one by one. She is 1.75 meters tall, with a slender figure and grand features. She is a typical clothes hanger and looks great on any outfit she wears, giving her a modeling vibe. Sister Zhu Yang. Zhu Yangxin was waiting for Li Man to change clothes, casually flipping through the new dress when she suddenly heard someone calling her. Turning her head, she realized that the enemy's path was narrow. What a coincidence, you're also shopping. The junior sister ran happily to Zhu Yangxin, thinking that their relationship was just as good as before. Zhu Yangxin looked coldly. Are you alone? Senior brother, she didn't accompany you. Little junior sister looked around and saw back Zhu Yangxin. I don't know if it's a psychological effect, but Zhu Yangxin always feels that when she says these words, her smile on her face is malicious. Do you have anything to do with him? Zhu Yangxin pretended to ask casually. No, I'm just asking casually. If you really want to find him, I'll just send him a message directly. How dare you trouble you, senior sister? Little junior sister shook her phone in a teasy manner, full of provocation. Zhu Yangxin did not respond and turned to continue looking at the clothes. Senior sister Zhu Yang, why don't you go on a date with senior brother Xi on Qixi today? It's boring to go shopping alone. Why don't we get together? I heard. The junior sister leaned over to Zhu Yangxin and began to chatter. No need, she's afraid you won't be able to hold on to her favorite style. At this moment, Riemann had already come out of the fitting room and walked up to the 2 of them, interrupting the young junior sister's words. Little junior sister always appears by Xi Chuan's side, looking for various reasons to get close to him. As Zhu Yangxin's good friend, Li Man naturally sees these situations and has no good impression of little junior sister. Originally, Sister Zhu Yang was accompanied by Sister Li, so I won't disturb you. Let's go first. Li Man, a beautiful woman, has a more arrogant and flamboyant personality than Zhu Yangxin. Her junior sister has been eating her mouth a lot, which has led her to gradually not dare to provoke Li Man. Seeing Li Man here, she dared not be reckless anymore and left hastily. Don't pay attention to her, help me take a look. Does this dress look good? Li Man noticed that Zhu Yangxin's expression was not quite right and quickly diverted her attention. Zhu Yangxin also really wanted to appreciate this dress, but all she could think of was seeing Xi Chuan and her junior sister holding hands last night, the scene of her feeding Xi Chuan ice cream, the little junior sister shaking her bling-bling phone and the love words inside that she didn't know. It was a story that she couldn't help but daydream about after they walked into the Express Hotel. Zhu Yangxin's nose soured, and Li Man immediately went to grab a tissue. He tore it too hard, causing the tissue packaging to open an irreparable large opening. I think this dress is good. You can try it on and it will definitely look good on you. Riemann quickly wiped away her tears, took a skirt from the nearby hanger and stuffed it into her arms, pushing her into the fitting room. Zhu Yangxin knew that Li Man was to prevent her from becoming the focus of attention for strangers in the mall, and even more so to avoid her junior sister seeing her own jokes. After such a commotion, the shopping plan was ruined, and the two of them returned to their dormitory in a disheartened manner. Zhu Yangxin couldn't help but tell Li Man everything she saw last night, except for that strange dream. Riemann was so angry that he cursed the dog man and woman 800 times. As evening approached, Zhu Yangxin's phone rang, and the name of Xi Chuan was prominently displayed on the screen. She glanced at Li Man and silently walked out of the dormitory to answer the phone. Xiaoxin, come down quickly and take you to eat something delicious. Xi Chuan's voice remained unchanged. Zhu Yangxin hesitated for a moment. Here we go. She hung up the phone and took a deep breath. When going out, Riemann hugged her and didn't say anything. Xi Chuan stood under the camphor tree in the dormitory building, wearing sportswear. He has a well-proportioned figure and a sunny and handsome appearance, making him look very comfortable. Seeing Zhu Yangxin approaching, Xi Chuan habitually came to hold his girlfriend's hand, but Zhu Yangxin decisively withdrew her hand and put it on the strap of her handbag. Xi Chuan was taken aback by Zhu Yangxin's reaction and noticed the ring on her right index finger. Newly purchased. He pointed and turned to hold Zhu Yangxin's left hand. I bought it yesterday while shopping, right at XX shopping mall. Zhu Yangxin deliberately said the name of the shopping mall and stared at her boyfriend. Xi Chuan is calm and composed, like a straightforward gentleman, with outstanding psychological qualities. Zhu Yangxin almost doubted whether the person she bumped into last night was the person in front of her. Zhu Yangxin originally thought that when she saw Xi Chuan again, she would angrily throw a tantrum at her boyfriend, question what happened last night, and curse at him from a moral standpoint. But looking at her boyfriend's clear eyes and familiar smile, Zhu Yangxin couldn't open her mouth and couldn't even avoid his outstretched hand for the second time, allowing him to lead her out. This feeling of confusion is like when she impulsively blocks Xi Chuan and her junior sister from playing games in a puppet costume. Who made my family unhappy? Sitting down at the restaurant, Xi Chuan pinched Zhu Yangxin's face. Zhu Yangxin instinctively dodged again, but did not dodge. Seeing Zhu Yangxin not speaking, Xi Chuan leaned closer and asked, "What's wrong? Are you angry with me? Blame me for not being with you yesterday." Zhu Yangxin looked into his eyes, which were still clear and devoid of any impurities. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Celebrate Qixi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Celebrate Qixi. Yesterday, I had sex with brother Yu and played too late. I really didn't get up in the morning. Xi Chuan thought he had guessed his girlfriend's caution and quickly explained. He scratched his head, appearing simple and sincere. How late did you play? Zhu Yangxin asked. Xi Chuan didn't expect Zhu Yangxin to ask this. He was momentarily stunned and quickly calmed down, saying, I didn't pay attention. Anyway, it's quite late and I'm so tired. I slept all morning and blamed me. Upon hearing these, Zhu Yangxin's hand under the table tightened slightly. At this moment, the waiter brought a plate of barbecue and placed it on their table. Come on, your favorite roasted chicken feet, eat while it's hot. Xi Chuan handed over 2 bamboo skewers, and Zhu Yangxin squinted her mouth, reluctantly taking them and starting to nibble on chicken feet. This roasted eggplant is also good, give it a try. He picked up another roasted eggplant and affectionately delivered it to Zhu Yangxin's mouth. Zhu Yangxin remained indifferent. Xi Chuan had to awkwardly put the eggplant into her bowl. Don't be unhappy, where do you want to go to play tonight? I'll accompany you. How about I let you punch a few punches to vent your anger? He was extremely patient and deliberately made a show of hitting himself, trying to make his girlfriend happy. The people at the nearby tables all cast strange gazes at him, as if looking at a fool, but he didn't care. Normally, this move would easily make Zhu Yangxin smile, but now it's no longer effective. At this moment, Xi Chuan's phone screen lit up and he received a WeChat message. Zhu Yangxin couldn't see who the sender was, but her intuition told her that the message came from junior sister. Before Xi Chuan could check, 2 or 3 more came in succession. Zhu Yangxin was a bit panicked. She guessed that Xi Chuan would find an excuse to leave her after seeing the information, so Zhu Yangxin quickly said, then you can accompany me to karaoke and stay up all night. No problem, whatever my treasure says is what it is. Xi Chuan reached out and pinched his girlfriend's face again. His other hand slowly picked up his phone and checked the previous message. Zhu Yangxin saw her boyfriend's eyebrows and eyes twitch slightly. Ah, senior brother Xi, senior sister Zhu Yang, what a coincidence we've met again. The junior sister held a phone in one hand and pulled over a plastic stool with the other hand, sitting directly next to Xi Chuan without treating herself as an outsider. Xia Bingyu glanced at Zhu Yangxin, and then all her gaze fell on Xi Chuan. As Xi Chuan was about to speak, Zhu Yangxin immediately spoke up, Xi Chuan, I'm not feeling well. Can you accompany me to the riverbank for a walk? Now. He looked at his girlfriend, then at his junior sister, and pointed to the barbecue on the table, saying, but we haven't finished yet. Take it and eat while walking. The smell of smoke here is too strong, and I feel uncomfortable smelling it. Zhu Yangxin deliberately glanced at the barbecue grill and waved her hand to dispel the smoke. Sister Zhu Yang, do you think I'm disturbing your date? The junior sister looked at her with big eyes open, pretending to be aggrieved, but had no intention of leaving. Of course it is, not only disturbing but also eye-catching. Zhu Yangxin thought to herself. Can we leave or not? Zhu Yangxin ignored her junior sister at all and looked straight at Xi Chuan. Xi Chuan smiled and nodded in response to his girlfriend. In the eyes of others, his gaze must have been spoiled. Xi Chuan grabbed the leftover food from the table and said to the junior sister, don't think too much. This seat happens to be for you, so you don't have to wait in line. As she was about to leave, the junior sister frowned and winked at Xi Chuan, and Zhu Yangxin pretended not to see her. Taking 2 steps, perhaps due to vanity, Zhu Yangxin hugged Xi Chuan's arm. Xi Chuan was taken aback for a moment, then turned around and glanced at his junior sister with his spare light. He then reached out to grab his girlfriend's shoulder and walked intimately towards the river. What's wrong with this? Isn't there still half a month left? Zhu Yangxin's mind twitched and immediately understood what he meant. He punched him and said, stinky thug. Xi Chuan's smile is really beautiful. Confirming that she had stepped out of Xia Bingyu's sight, Zhu Yangxin immediately released her hand, feeling nauseous from touching Xi Chuan for the first time. The wind by the river was very comfortable blowing on me. The roasted chicken feet had cooled off, and Zhu Yangxin had no taste as she nibbled on them. She leaned against the railing and looked across the river from afar. The sky suddenly turned completely dark. Xiaoxin, I may not be able to accompany you to sing today. There's something wrong with my family, so I need to hurry back and take you back to the dormitory. Xi Chuan is a local indigenous person, and his family is located in this city. Zhu Yangxin knew that this was just a casual excuse, so he decided to accompany his junior sister. It's not yet 8 o'clock, are you in such a hurry? What happened? She asked indifferently. It's not a big deal either. You don't have to worry, I'll just go back and take a look. Xi Chuan held Zhu Yangxin's hand and led her back to the dormitory while speaking. Zhu Yangxin deliberately slowed down her pace and asked him reluctantly, can't we not go? Xi Chuan showed a distressed expression as he patiently said, I also want to be with you. How about tomorrow? I'll be with you all day tomorrow, and I'll do whatever you want, okay? He, a master of time management. So, finally, he left, took his girlfriend to the bottom of the dormitory building, and then left the dormitory park to celebrate Qixi with his junior sister. Zhu Yangxin was not ready to deal with this situation. She was unwilling to continue pretending to know nothing, nor did she want to hand over Xi Chuan. It turns out that when a scumbag cheats on you, he doesn't cut you off in pain, but rather, like boiling a frog in warm water, gradually eroding all your strength. Zhu Yangxin lay in bed, tears streaming uncontrollably. In a daze, Zhu Yangxin felt a cool breeze blowing in from the balcony, rolling up a corner of her tent. She glanced unintentionally and was almost scared to jump out of bed. You! She was about to scream, but she was afraid of waking up Riemann. She forced her voice down and said, why are you here? Can anyone explain why Minghe would sit by her bed? Is it okay for Riemann to see it? Minghe looked at Zhu Yangxin indifferently. Zhu Yangxin couldn't see his expression clearly, and could only barely distinguish it from the outline. At this moment, the person sitting by the edge of her bed was the one who hanged the monster last night. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Dream Hunting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Dream Hunting. At first glance, where should I be if I'm not here? As soon as Minghe jumped to the ground, Zhu Yangxin opened the bed curtain and looked into it. The light from the French window let her see more clearly. This time, Minghe put on his clothes, tied up his long hair, and covered the turtle crack with a cloth strip on his forehead, appearing more energetic. The girls' dormitory has a desk below and a bed above. Zhu Yangxin climbed down the stairs while also taking a look at Riemann's bed. Riemann's bed tent remained motionless, probably not awake. What do you want? Zhu Yangxin found herself only wearing a camisole nightgown and quickly pulled off a thin blanket to drape over her, whispering to Minghe. You come with me. Where are we going? She doesn't want to go out and wander around in the middle of the night. Hunting for dreams. What? Zhu Yangxin falls into a knowledge-blind spot. Xiaoya. Without any explanation, Minghe let out a light shout and Xiaoya rushed out from behind Zhu Yangxin, startling her once again. Sister Xian, we're meeting again. Xiaoya greeted Zhu Yangxin. Humph. Xiaoxi let out a soft snort, and Zhu Yangxin was scared 3 times. She took a step away and gave up the other little girl behind her. Why are you all here? Zhu Yangxin never expected these 3 guys to appear in the dormitory. Don't be stunned, let's go. After Minghe finished speaking, Xiaoya and Xiaoxi walked towards the door of the room. Xiaoya placed her hand on the door, and soon a strange dark symbol appeared on the door. The symbol rotates and swims on the door, eventually stopping. After finishing these, Xiaoya nodded to Minghe and stepped back to the door to stand still. Minghe turned around and looked at Zhu Yangxin, his eyes seeming to be urging. Zhu Yangxin was uncomfortable with those cold and stern eyes, and wanted to say to Minghe, walk slowly, don't leave. However, in the end, she just hesitated and said, you have to tell me where to go, right? Are you afraid? Minghe is neither salty nor indifferent, as if provoking, as if mocking, or as if stating an irrelevant fact. I'm tired, I want to sleep. Zhu Yangxin refused inwardly. Minghe took a step forward, but Zhu Yangxin took a step back, and was forced by Minghe to lean back against the wardrobe, unable to retreat. Minghe stared straight at Zhu Yangxin, as if he wanted to nail her to the cabinet door with his eyes. I suddenly don't feel so tired anymore, it's good to go out for activities. Zhu Yangxin was suffocated by the pressure in Minghe's eyes and had to bow her head. Minghe seemed satisfied with her answer and gave a sly smile. Why don't you go first? I'll just change clothes and come. You can't let me go out in pajamas, can you? Zhu Yangxin thinks she can still save herself. No need. Minghe refused and turned to the door, pulling it open and saying, come here. Zhu Yangxin hesitated a bit, forcing her to go out in such a way was indeed a bit insane. Minghe repeatedly urged her, so she reluctantly left the door and tightened the blanket tightly on her body. Minghe followed her out and casually closed the room door, causing the surroundings to immediately fall into pitch black. Zhu Yangxin remembers that the dormitory gate was just a few steps away from the dormitory door. She walked past in the dark, but didn't touch anything. She moved for another moment, but there was still nothing around her. Just as Zhu Yangxin was starting to panic, a big hand grabbed her arm, causing her to scream in fear. Zhu Yangxin, don't act rashly, wait for me to come and find you. Just as Zhu Yangxin was about to speak, she felt the touch on her arm disappear and the surroundings lit up. At this moment, she was not in the dormitory, but standing in a hallway where she could see the nearby playground from a distance. Zhu Yangxin. Strange female voices echoed from behind. Zhu Yangxin turned around and saw that the person calling her was a woman in her 30s, with short hair, black framed glasses, a light green dress, and a book in her hand. Zhu Yangxin does not have this woman in her memory. If you want to play, please come with me to class after class. The woman waved her hand. Zhu Yangxin followed the woman in confusion, looked around, and recognized at a glance what the place was. The school. It looks like a high school. At this moment, class had just begun, and the classroom next to him stood up and shouted, "Hello teacher," then sat down together. Zhu Yangxin had not participated in such a class ceremony for a long time. She suddenly remembered something and looked at herself. She was no longer wearing pajamas, but was wearing the same school uniform as those high school students, feeling magical. The woman led Zhu Yangxin into a classroom not far ahead and heard the woman say, "Class." The students in the class also greeted the teacher in unison and sat down. "Let me introduce to you, this is the new classmate in our class. Zhu Yangxin." Everyone applauds and welcomes us. After the woman finished speaking, most of the classmates applauded. Zhu Yangxin noticed that a few girls were just pretending to pat their hands softly, while another girl remained motionless with her head buried. "Alright, classmate Zhu Yangxin, please take that empty seat first." The woman on the podium pointed in a direction, and Zhu Yangxin obediently nodded and walked towards her seat. Her desk mate is also a girl, with a bun-shaped head and a beautiful smile. Seeing her dark circles under her eyes, Zhu Yangxin slightly deducted a few points from the girl's sweet appearance. "Hello Zhu Yangxin, my name is Zhang Xiaoyu." My desk mate introduced themselves in a low voice. Zhu Yangxin smiled and nodded, "Hello. Have you not received your book yet? Let's read it together." Zhang Xiaoyu saw that Zhu Yangxin was empty-handed and enthusiastically placed his textbook in the middle of his seat. Because he was still in class, Zhang Xiaoyu didn't chat with Zhu Yangxin much, but he treated her warmly. He took out his own book to share with Zhu Yangxin and discussed the book's topics with Zhu Yangxin. Zhu Yangxin quickly became less reserved. The bell rang for the end of class, and the class ended on time. Zhang Xiaoyu chatted with Zhu Yangxin, and the classmates at the front and back tables also cast curious glances at Zhu Yangxin. Zhu Yangxin accidentally caught a glimpse of several girls coming to the seat of the girl who had been burying her head. These girls were the ones who had not applauded and welcomed her before. They didn't speak, or Zhu Yangxin didn't hear what they said clearly. A few tugs and a few people walked out of the classroom. Oh, don't be so obsessed with it. Zhang Xiaoyu tugged at Zhu Yangxin's sleeve and lowered her voice. She clearly noticed what Zhu Yangxin was looking at, with a somewhat strange expression on her face. Zhu Yangxin had some vague speculations in her heart, but these had nothing to do with her. She didn't know why she had traveled here, so naturally she didn't have much interest in meddling. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Black Cat. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Black Cat. After 10 minutes of class, it was gone in the blink of an eye. The class bell rang, and students strolling outside ran back to the classroom, quickly filling their seats. No, Zhu Yangxin glanced over and the buried girl didn't come back. She glanced in another direction, but the other girls who didn't applaud well were all there. Class. Hello teacher. The teacher also noticed that there was a missing person in the classroom. Upon inquiry, someone said that the girl had diarrhea and went to the medical room, but the teacher didn't bother anymore. Zhu Yangxin only then learned that the girl buried in her head was named Lu Yunyan. Zhu Yangxin felt a headache when she saw the knowledge points of philosophical schools filled with chalkboards. Why did she, a soon-to-be junior high school student, come to listen to such things? She glanced at the classmates around her while the teacher was not paying attention. Most of them listened attentively, with some eyelids drooping and others whispering secretly. If they didn't applaud well, the girls would exchange notes with each other, indicating that they belonged to the group of stinging students. Zhu Yangxin didn't know when she would be able to leave here, had no awareness of participating in role-playing, and turned her gaze to the window, already wandering for thousands of miles. The sky is gloomy and doesn't look like it's going to rain. Suddenly, Zhu Yangxin saw a school uniform falling from above, followed by a muffled thud. Zhu Yangxin realized something, widened her eyes in surprise, and sat up straight. She was not the only one who was distracted in the classroom, several students were staring out the window in confusion. The teacher who was lecturing on stage also heard the muffled noise just now. He looked serious and put down his book and chalk. He said in a deep voice, "You should do the third question first. After you finish it, you can study for a while." After speaking, the teacher hurriedly left the classroom. Hey! What was that just now? Did you see it too? I thought I was dizzy. Oh my goodness, who is that? What are you talking about? As soon as the teacher left, the students immediately began to discuss and their voices grew louder and louder. Zhu Yangxin wanted to go out and take a look, but she didn't dare. Bold students have already poked their heads out of the window or front and back doors of the classroom to watch the excitement. Xiaoxin. Zhang Xiaoyu pulled Zhu Yangxin's hand and said with a worried expression, "What did you say happened outside?" "I don't know." Zhu Yangxin shook her head. Many people have the same guess in their hearts, but there is no definite news, and everyone has a glimmer of luck. Sleeping trough, it's Lu Yunyan. Lu Yunyan jumped off the building. A boy ran back to the classroom from outside. Even if he lowered his voice, he couldn't hide the shock in his heart. There was a commotion in the classroom, and more people left their seats and ran to the door and window to peek out. Zhang Xiaoyu's face turned pale, his legs moved and seemed to want to step forward, but he hesitated to sit in his seat. In the end, she seemed determined and turned to take Zhu Yangxin's hand, saying, "Xiaoxin, can you accompany me to take a look?" Zhu Yangxin's first reaction was to refuse, jokingly, as she didn't want to see any high-definition, no-code footage. But Zhang Xiaoyu's palms were filled with cold sweat, and with those pleading and pitiful eyes, Zhu Yangxin's "bad" choked on her throat and swallowed it again. It's just that, considering Zhang Xiaoyu's enthusiasm for her in the past few hours, it's okay to accompany her to join the fun. At most, she just turned her head and didn't look. Two people holding hands. To be precise, Zhang Xiaoyu tightly hugged Zhu Yangxin's hand and walked together to the outside of the classroom. There are many brave students gathered in the corridor, but most of them still dare to hide in the classroom and look outside. Zhang Xiaoyu covered his eyes with his hand and looked through his fingers, while Zhu Yangxin stood with her as a humanoid pillar, not looking down at all. "Ah, what is that?" While Zhang Xiaoyu exclaimed in surprise, the other classmates next to him also made waves of noise. Zhu Yangxin was inevitably driven by curiosity. She looked down and saw a girl wearing a school uniform leaning down on the ground. There was a glaring blood stain next to her head, and the school uniform was also stained with a lot of blood. However, what caused the commotion among the crowd was not the bloody scene, but a black cat that suddenly jumped out of the flower bed. The black cat was as pitch black as ink, with a slightly emaciated body, and was gradually approaching Lu Yunyan. Where did this wild cat come from? Don't let it pass by. A teacher was shouting on the ground, and a person nearby immediately stepped forward to drive away. However, the black cat was not scared away. It quickly jumped onto Lu Yunyan's back and lowered its head to smell the blood on her body. The driving teacher took 2 steps forward, and the black cat's fur exploded all over its body, emitting a mournful meow while revealing its sharp claws, posing a strong threat. The teacher didn't dare to catch the cat with bare hands anymore. Instead, he picked up a branch from the flower bed and tentatively reached out to the black cat. At this moment, the other teachers surrounding Lu Yunyan showed frightened expressions and took several steps back, except for the cat-driving teacher who remained in place. "Teacher Wang, be careful." A teacher shouted loudly at the teacher who was driving the cat. The cat-driving teacher didn't know what had happened, but when everyone stepped back, he also followed suit and retreated among the teachers. How could this be? How could she suddenly open her eyes? The timid teacher exclaimed in surprise. "Classmate." The other teacher tilted her head and tried to have a conversation with Lu Yunyan, hoping to see if the girl suddenly woke up. The black cat had already put away its fur and sat quietly on Lu Yunyan, leisurely licking its paws. "She. Her eyes are bleeding." The teacher who had just exclaimed screamed again, her voice trembling. She immediately took a few more steps back and hid far behind the group of teachers. All the teachers and students present took a deep breath. "I heard that the appearance of the black cat next to the corpse is ominous. Are you trying to feign the corpse?" A teacher muttered softly, although only the group of teachers on the ground could hear this sentence. Similar remarks also spread among the students. After all, who has not heard of some mysterious legends? "Why did you all run out? Hurry back to the classroom." At this moment, the teacher who had just left came back and drove all the students who came out of this floor to watch the excitement back to the classroom. Zhu Yangxin pulled Zhang Xiaoyu back to their seats together. Zhang Xiaoyu covered her mouth, tears swirling in her eyes before finally falling. Fortunately, she didn't cry for long and quickly adjusted her emotions. Her red eyes were full of sadness, as if she was sad, as if she was frightened, and her expression was complex. Zhu Yangxin didn't know how to comfort her, so she gently patted her back and said, "Don't think so much, let's have a good class." Zhang Xiaoyu gave a low response. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Like Falling Ice Caves. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Like falling ice caves. Something like this happened on campus, and we can imagine the situation in class afterwards. Zhang Xiaoyu has always been in an absent-minded state. Although he still shares textbooks and stationery with Zhu Yangxin, he has completely lost his initial charm. Did you say she died? Didn't you see that place of blood? It hasn't been wiped clean yet. Sleeping slot, do you think she really opened her eyes? She scared the teacher like that. Have you seen that cat? Why haven't you seen it before? The incident of Lu Yunyan jumping off a building quickly became the main topic of discussion among students during break time, causing everyone to fall into panic for a moment. Due to the appearance of the black cat and the rumors and gossip of Lu Yunyan opening her eyes and shedding tears, this incident has added more mysterious colors. After the last class ended, the homeroom teacher announced the end of school and walked slowly to Zhu Yangxin and Zhang Xiaoyu. "Xiaoyu, take Zhu Yangxin to the dormitory. The dormitory management teacher has already arranged it." The homeroom teacher explained. Good. Zhang Xiaoyu nodded obediently. The homeroom teacher lightly patted Zhang Xiaoyu's shoulder, didn't say much, and turned around to leave the classroom. When Zhang Xiaoyu and Zhu Yangxin left the teaching building together, they couldn't help but turn their heads and glance at the ground next to the flower bed. In the afterglow of the sunset, a shadow fell from that place, like a vortex that could devour all things. The dormitory building is not far from the teaching building, but compared to the newly built modern teaching building, the dormitory building appears too old. Zhu Yangxin registered with the dormitory management teacher, received bedding and other daily necessities, and was taken to her dormitory. Zhang Xiaoyu happened to have an empty bed in his dormitory, so the two of them went from being desk mates to roommates. Each dormitory in the dormitory building has 4 beds, and there is no bathroom in the dormitories. Each floor shares a common bathroom, and the overall layout and decoration are very simple, similar to the style of the 1980s and 1990s. These 2 beds are empty, you can choose your own bed. Zhang Xiaoyu pointed to 2 empty beds and said. Oh, good. Zhu Yangxin dug out the bedding from the big and small bags and began making the bed. While busy, she casually asked, "Is there anyone else living here? Are they also from our class?" Zhang Xiaoyu let out a "Oh, why hasn't she come back? Who is it?" Zhu Yangxin asked again. Zhang Xiaoyu's face gradually turned ugly, and after a while, she highlighted 3 words. Lu Yunyan. Zhu Yangxin stiffened all over and slowly turned to look at Zhang Xiaoyu. That. For a moment, it seemed like endless words were stuck in her throat, and she didn't know where to start. Her other roommate is Lu Yunyan, the one who jumped off the building today. No wonder Zhang Xiaoyu would cry. Zhu Yangxin glanced at Lu Yunyan's empty bed, feeling flustered in her heart. Can Lu Yunyan still live under such circumstances at that time? Adding to the strange situation that followed, she had a bad premonition in her heart. Zhu Yangxin and Zhang Xiaoyu went in and out together, had dinner together, went to evening self-study together, and washed and slept together, but they didn't say much. Due to this incident, the atmosphere in the dormitory was very oppressive. At night, Zhu Yangxin tossed and turned in bed, struggling to fall asleep. When she turned around again, she was facing Lu Yunyan's bed. Unlike her university dormitory with a bed and tent partition, Lu Yunyan's condition on the bed is clearly visible. Zhu Yangxin held her breath, feeling as if her heart had suddenly stopped for a few seconds, and a piercing chill swept through her body. Because she saw Lu Yunyan lying on the bed like a person. She didn't dare to move, and her gaze swept over Zhang Xiaoyu's bed. Zhang Xiaoyu was sleeping soundly. Zhu Yangxin's hair stood up all over her body, and the scenes she saw during the day surged into her mind, making her even more afraid. At this moment, the figure on the bed moved, and the person who was originally lying flat became lying on their side, as if facing towards Zhu Yangxin. Zhu Yangxin quickly closed her eyes. Can't see me, can't see me. Zhu Yangxin silently recited in her heart. What kind of place is this? She's going home, she doesn't want to play anymore, it's so scary. It was the scorching summer season, but Zhu Yangxin felt like falling into an ice cave, wishing she could wrap herself tightly with a blanket. Not knowing how long had passed, Zhu Yangxin secretly opened a slit in her eyes and found that the figure on Lu Yunyan's bed was missing. Ache. Zhang Xiaoyu suddenly sneezed. After a rustling sound, the dormitory lights were lit up. Zhang Xiaoyu walked over to Zhu Yangxin's bed and gently patted her shoulder. Zhu Yangxin was already pretending to be asleep, so she opened her eyes accordingly. Xiaoxin, I want to go to the bathroom. Can you accompany me? Zhang Xiaoyu timidly asked. Under the light, Zhu Yangxin could clearly see the goosebumps on Zhang Xiaoyu's neck and arms. Is it that cold? The thought of the figure she saw in the darkness just now made Zhu Yangxin's heart furrow. If Zhang Xiaoyu left, she would have to stay alone in the empty dormitory. Well, let's go. Zhu Yangxin decisively put on her shoes and stood up. Two people walked out of the dormitory hand in hand, and under the dim yellow incandescent light, the corridor looked particularly long. All the dormitories ahead have turned off their lights, except for the lights in the public restroom that are still on. However, due to aging, the originally silver lights have also become dim. Although it was not very far, the two of them walked along, but also walked out of the feeling of a long journey. Zhu Yangxin dared not stay alone in the hallway and entered the bathroom with Zhang Xiaoyu to wait for her. Zai. Shi. Dang. The incandescent light outside the bathroom flickered a few times with a few electric current sounds before completely extinguishing. Zhu Yangxin's heart became even more anxious. She quickly walked to the bathroom door and looked in. Fortunately, only one lamp was scrapped, while the other lamps were still in good condition, which made Zhu Yangxin feel a little more at ease. At this moment, she looked at both ends of the corridor, feeling as if it had no end in sight. Zhu Yangxin withdrew her thoughts and turned to prepare to return to the wash basin to continue waiting for Zhang Xiaoyu. However, she saw Zhang Xiaoyu standing behind her, with a calm face that almost had an intimate contact with her, which frightened her. You. How are you? Zhu Yangxin touched her small heart, which was pounding with excitement. She didn't hear any movement just now, completely unaware of when Zhang Xiaoyu walked behind her. Zhang Xiaoyu gave a faint response, then staggered Zhu Yangxin and walked to the corridor outside the bathroom. Half of her body was hidden in the darkness, and she turned her head to look at Zhu Yangxin, who was stunned in place. She said, let's go back. Okay. Zhu Yangxin followed out. The two walked back side by side, but Zhang Xiaoyu still smiled at Zhu Yangxin without holding her hand. They returned to the dormitory, turned off the lights, went to bed separately, and the surroundings became quiet again. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Pranks. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Pranks in the darkness. Zhu Yangxin secretly glanced at Zhang Xiaoyu, who had fallen asleep again, feeling strange and unable to say what was wrong. She flipped over a few times, and the figure on Lu Yunyin's bed no longer appeared. Everything seemed to have returned to normal, except for her becoming more and more conscious, with no signs of drowsiness. Not long after, someone suddenly knocked on the dormitory door, and Zhu Yangxin had to be alert. At first, the sound of knocking on the door was relatively restrained, but then it became louder and faster. Who would run to the girls' dormitory and knock on the door in the middle of the night? Zhu Yangxin felt uneasy and hesitated, afraid to leave. At this moment, she remembered whether her roommate Zhang Xiaoyu would foolishly open the door and turn her head to look at Zhang Xiaoyu's bed. She was shocked to find that Zhang Xiaoyu's bed was empty, and the girl was not even in bed. She immediately propped up her body and looked around for Zhang Xiaoyu's figure. The dormitory was not far away from her, and she didn't see Zhang Xiaoyu anywhere. Xiaoxin, are you inside? Open the door quickly. Outside the door, Zhang Xiaoyu's voice was tinged with tears. Zhu Yangxin's whole person is not doing well. Is it Zhang Xiaoyu knocking on the door? When did she run out? Zhu Yangxin immediately got out of bed and opened the door for her roommate. As soon as Zhang Xiaoyu heard the sound of the door lock opening, she panicked and rushed in, choking her whole body. Zhu Yangxin, be careful and lock the door. Why don't you wait for me? Woo-woo. Zhang Xiaoyu sat on the bed, hugging her body tightly, trembling and crying like a frightened deer. Zhu Yangxin felt a tingling sensation on her scalp. What? Zhu Yangxin thought she had heard wrong. You actually left me alone in the bathroom and ran back to the dormitory, locking the door. Woo woo woo. Zhu Yangxin, is this prank fun? Zhang Xiaoyu couldn't stop crying, feeling wronged, frightened, and angry. The once gentle girl now became aggressive. Zhu Yangxin couldn't speak for a while. Did she leave Zhang Xiaoyu in the bathroom? She clearly went back to the dormitory with Zhang Xiaoyu. If this is the real Zhang Xiaoyu, then who is the one who came back to sleep with her? Or rather, what kind of thing is that? The more Zhu Yangxin thought about it, the more she felt her hair stand on end. She swallowed her saliva and slowly spoke, "What if I say, I came back with you? You're talking nonsense." Zhang Xiaoyu was about to deny it, but when she saw Zhu Yangxin's eyes not joking, she quickly thought of something and widened her eyes. Suddenly, the dormitory lights went out, and the surroundings fell into darkness. Zhang Xiaoyu screamed and ran in the direction of Zhu Yangxin, bumping along the way. I only heard tables and chairs colliding, buckets and hot water bottles flipping over one after another, and Zhang Xiaoyu groaned a few times in pain. Then, the warm and damp hand touched Zhu Yangxin's arm and tightly embraced it. Woo-woo, Xiaoxin, has she returned? Zhang Xiaoyu was trembling all over. Don't daydream, it might just be a broken light bulb. It's hard not to think in that direction in such a situation, but Zhu Yangxin still pretends to be calm and appease Zhang Xiaoyu. Zhang Xiaoyu's hair brushed over Zhu Yangxin's shoulder, and the girl seemed to be shaking her head. No, I just saw her, it must be her. The goosebumps on Zhang Xiaoyu's body rubbed against Zhu Yangxin's skin. Where did you see it? Even though Zhu Yangxin constantly brainwashes herself. All hallucinations, all hallucinations. She has to admit that this matter has exceeded the scope of scientific explanation. She pretended to be calm while quietly groping for the door lock. Her idea is very simple. 36 strategies are the best, as long as she can escape, maybe she will be safe. However, Zhu Yangxin fumbled for a while and didn't even touch the door. It's strange that she's standing right at the door, and the door shouldn't be too far from her. How could she not touch it? Zhu Yangxin didn't dare to make too much movement. She pulled Zhang Xiaoyu and moved slowly, following her memory to touch the door. She touched something, cool and soft, a little like a girl's slender forearm. Zhu Yangxin took a deep breath. She didn't remember anything resembling an arm by the door, and the tactile sensation didn't match any object she could associate with. Shouldn't she kneel down quickly and kowtow her head 3 times? Zhu Yangxin hurriedly withdrew her hand and hugged Zhang Xiaoyu, taking a few steps back. What's wrong? Zhang Xiaoyu was puzzled. Shoo, don't talk. Zhu Yangxin wished she could just cover her roommate's mouth. After finishing her calf, Lu Yunyun must know she found her. What would she do? Zhu Yangxin's brain was sore, and apart from fear, she had no idea how to deal with this supernatural force. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaoyu seemed to have collapsed on the ground, crying loudly. Yunyun, I'm sorry. Please let me go. Sobbing. Dong, dong, dong. Zhu Yangxin was shocked. She stood in a daze, feeling that Zhang Xiaoyu was kowtowing fiercely in front of her. While kowtowing, she let out loud cries. Zhu Yangxin was nervous and helpless. She appeared at this school as a transfer student, and her only impression of Lu Yunyun was just a lonely figure buried in her head, not even knowing what she looked like. Who knew that in less than a day, the girl who should have been her roommate had undergone such a great transformation, and now she met her with such a posture. 3 steps away, the darkness was opened through a crack, growing larger and larger, with a figure stretching across the dim yellow gap. Dang! The entire dormitory lit up again, and a girl appeared at the entrance. She saw the 2 people in the dormitory clearly and was completely awakened from drowsiness. Xiao Yu, are you okay? The girl frowned slightly and gave Zhu Yangxin a strange glance. At this moment, Zhang Xiaoyu knelt on the ground in embarrassment, her forehead red and swollen, tears hanging on her face, and dust staining her face, making her look very disheveled. Zhu Yangxin stood beside Zhang Xiaoyu in a daze, their postures looking strange. The girl also noticed a mess inside the dormitory. The chair beside Zhang Xiaoyu's bed was lying on the ground, along with her clothes scattered all over the floor. Buckets, hot water bottles, and bottles were scattered, with a puddle of water spreading out in the center of the dormitory. Such a scene was undoubtedly a pair of roommates fighting inside, without any suspicion. Seeing the girl, Zhang Xiaoyu turned from kneeling to sitting, covering her face and thrusting, crying uncontrollably. "What's going on? What's going on?" The girl took 2 more steps forward and squatted down to lightly pat Zhang Xiaoyu's back. Zhang Xiaoyu may have been frightened, unable to speak at all, crying uncontrollably for a long time. End of this chapter.